We've got a number of burning economic issues to attend as we start a brand new business week. If you spend some of your holiday period listening to the news, you understand that the US and China are now head-to-head in terms of the trade wars, tit for tat, between Washington and Beijing. That's on the news. Then, of course, all about crude oil still flirting with $70 a barrel, keeping to the upper end of the $60 per barrel. That's some good news, and you saw how that contributes to Nigeria's foreign reserves reading in the final days of March, taking us to the doorstep of $46.2 billion US dollars. That's the highest level we've seen since March of 2017. So the numbers look really good. So we got a bit of some new good news, and then we'll have a few not so good. All this coming together as we listen to Adimo Kwesa from Financial Derivatives Company. He's one of the research analysts, the team there that joins us Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you wonder why you see his face regularly on the program, that's one of the reasons. And he's here, fresh from the Easter long holiday break. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Moira.
You're looking fresh from the Easter holiday. You can see all my eye bags here. We're always in business. But again, if you look at what we're waking up to, let's start from the big story after the holiday. The March PMI is what we have in front of us, and these numbers look good.
Yes, indeed. Very good news. Very eventful start to the second quarter of 2018. The PMI numbers, the manufacturing sector expanded for the 12th consecutive month from both the CBN and the FBN. The CBN's PMI went from 56.3 to 56.7, whereas the FBN's PMI expanded from 54.7 to 59.4, much broader expansion. I think that's very good news for the economy. However, I think what we have to notice is that the manufacturing sector is still very fragile, and I think that speaks to the first point on our burning economic issues list. The MBC is meeting for the first time in 2018, and I think this time, unlike no other, there are actually very strong arguments for each case, each option, whether to hold, whether to cut, whether to ease. I think those who argue for hold will say that the economy has been in autopilot mode. Why should we do anything that would alter the trajectory of the economy? And you also have to note that some new members are just coming into the MPC meeting for the first time, so they want to rather err on the side of caution rather than inject stimulus. So it's a very difficult decision to make. But wherever those people in favor of easing will say, for example, the manufacturing sector it has expanded consistently for 12 months, but it's still very fragile. It's still one of the most vulnerable sectors in the economy. It is.
I got your point, because already on Twitter, just before we came in here on air, we have folks who are still asking questions as soon as these numbers and it hits the wire, and on social media, folks are still asking. For example, Olufemi Awoyemi on Twitter was asking, but where is the production output growth? So, yes. So on paper, yes, the PMI looks good, but the question is, where is the production output growth?
Yes, it's still struggling with various impediments like slow consumer, very low, weak consumer purchasing power, influx of smuggled products, a very strict, you can say strict tax regime environment. So they're very high interest rate environment. So
you think this is one key question that the Godwin Emefiele and the rest of the team will be digesting today? Yes, it looks good on the front desk, but behind the curtain, what does it really look like in terms of production? I'm sure that will be good. But let's move on because of time, looking at a few other burning economic issues. Okay, the global market plunged into a correction. The stock market, we saw that since February here. But the bigger story is that China is imposing fresh tariffs on $3 billion worth of U.S. imports. The Chinese, of course, everyone knew wouldn't take President Trump's challenge very lightly.
Yes, I think this is in response to an earlier move by the U.S., which imposed tariffs on $60 billion worth of Chinese imports. So you can say this is not a proportionate response from the Chinese. So it shouldn't generate a slowdown in economic growth. But however, there's a risk that if we see escalating rounds of both tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade, what it can do, it will hit business confidence, it will hit investment decisions, and ultimately the performance of the global economy. So
I agree with you.
It's a very big risk.
Because as I said this morning, of course, the news is already out there that South Korea is already looking at Taiwan
Yes.
as a new as a trade partner because of the rift between the two elephants in the room, which is U.S. and China. And South Korea has already said, hold on, I don't want to get trampled. And of course, South Korea wouldn't want to offend the U.S. anyway. Neither is largest neighbor China. So just quickly step over to Vietnam and looking for some strategic relationships
they
there.
say when two elephants are fighting, the grass is the one that suffers.
So Nigeria, if you consider Nigeria as one of the grass that would likely get knocked by this, are we anywhere in this trade war? Are we?
We are, if you look at it, because both China and the US account for 28% of Nigeria's trade. We export out of the global economy, we export 28% of our exports to both China and the US. So it can affect us, but also it can affect us positively too. If you look at the list of products that the Chinese slapped on, that raised tariffs on US imports, we can see their fruits, their nuts, which Nigeria does produce. However, our capacity is not sufficient enough. And our products are not even competitive enough to compete with the US and other developed markets.
I'm not too sure if I should say I like what you're saying or I dislike what you're saying.
I think
because it's a double-edged sword.
It is.
You prepare yourself for situations like this.
Yes.
And that is what they call economic positioning globally, isn't it? You position for the days the big boys will fight.
Yes.
Then you, under the table, start moving things. But now we're not producing enough of those fruits.
Yes.
Which by now we should be asking the US, don't worry about the Chinese. We have it here and we can supply and fruits as well. But let's see how it goes.
I think this should provide an incentive for us to boost production, to make our goods more competitive. So we can, if US products are more expensive, our products will be more attractive to the Chinese. And the Chinese is a very huge market, over 1 billion consumers. So there is a market there in China, especially. Yes.
That's part of the good news. And I just we're moving up to the good news, folks. Let's bring that up. And a very nice way to start the week. We have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, good news and just one bad news. Take us through this. Of course, we're just chewing over the first line item there. Nigeria could benefit from escalating US-China trade disputes.
Yes.
I think we touched a little bit on the manufacturing sector as well.
Yes, the NSC was up, although March was a bit of a slow month, but it was up 8.53% in the first quarter of 2018, continuing the positive performance of 2017. So that is very good news. But like, if you go down to the bad news issue, the ripple effect of this global trade war, if it escalates further, it would also